Hello everyone. In this video, we will be solving one-step equation. When we say solving equation, it means that we are supposed to determine the value of the variable such that it will make the equation true. So in this example right here, x plus 4 equals 10. So we need to figure out what is that value of x such that if you add 4 to it, it's gonna be 10. Since we say that solving equation is determining the value of the variable, this means that we are supposed to isolate x by itself on one side. But then we have a plus 4 here. We remember that the opposite of addition is subtraction. So in order that we can isolate x by itself here, we need to clear this plus 4 on this side of the equation. So what are we going to do is, since the opposite of addition is subtraction, so I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides, minus 4 on the other side. So that means to make them even, you have to, if you subtract 4 on one side, you also subtract on the other side. Now others would prefer to draw a line here. The purpose for that is they want to make sure that they don't get messed up with the two sides of the equation. We can do that, or others are comfortable to just not put the boundary right here. That should be fine too, so it doesn't really matter. So then from here we can go ahead and say that if we have a plus 4 minus 4 is a 0. So then we can go ahead and cross this out. We are left with x on the left side. So x is actually equal to, that's going to be 10 minus 4 is 6. So this is our value for x. And this makes sense because if we plug this 6 back into the equation, so that would be 6 plus 4 is 10, and that makes it true. At this time, I would encourage you to pause this video and try this problem out on your own. And when you're done, unpause it and check your answer. Okay, so we go over the problem here. Again, we remember that we are supposed to clear one side of the equation, meaning we isolate x by itself on one side. So in order that we can do that, since we have a negative 3, we remember that the opposite of subtraction is addition. So then we can go ahead and say we add 3 to both sides and plus 3 here. Again, you can draw a line to separate the two sides of the equation, the left side and the right side. That should be okay, or you can keep it like this. That should be fine too. So then we can go ahead and say that if we have a negative 3 plus 3, this would get crossed out. So that means we are left with only x on the left side. So then we go ahead and say negative 5 plus 3 is negative 2. So the value for x here is negative 2. And again, this makes sense because if we have negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. Did you get the same answer as this? Good. Perfect. Now let's move on to the next example right here. We actually have the variable y here. So I'm just showing you some examples that it doesn't have to be x every time. Because others are saying like, we only have x as the variable. We always solve for x. No, it doesn't really have to be x. It can be any letter in the alphabet because these are variables. So in this case right here, we go ahead and say that since this is a negative 4, we remember that the opposite of subtraction is addition. So I go ahead and add 4 to both sides and then plus 4 here. Again, others would prefer to draw a boundary between the left and the right side of the equation so they don't mess up with the numbers that are placed into the solution. You can do that, or you may not put a boundary. That should be fine too. So then we can go ahead and say that here negative 4 plus 4 is a 0. We can cross that out. So we're left with y is equal to 7 plus 4 is 11. And so this is the value for y. And this makes sense because if we have 11 minus 4 is 7. At this time, I would encourage you to pause this video and try this problem out on your own. And when you're done, unpause it and check your answer. Okay, since Okay, so we go over the problem here. Since we have a positive 3, again, we remember that the opposite of addition is subtraction. So we go ahead and subtract 3 from both sides, minus 3. So then we can go ahead and say that this 3 and negative 3 gets crossed out, so it becomes a 0. So we're left with y on the left side, and that is negative 5 minus 3 is negative 8. And this is the value for the y that we have on this equation right here. And it makes sense because if you have a negative 8 plus 3 is negative 5. Did you get negative 8 as your answer to this problem right here? Good. Perfect. Now let's move on to the next example right here. So we are given 7x equals negative 21. So we remember that if we say 7x, that's actually 7 multiplied by the value of x, whatever that x is, it will come out negative 21. So we need to figure out what is this x value. Now, since this is multiplication, we remember that the opposite of multiplication is division. So then we can go ahead and say we can divide, because our target is to have x by itself here. We want to get rid of the 7. So we go ahead and divide 7 to both sides. We divide this by 7. Again, you can draw a line as a boundary for both the left side and the right side of the equation so you don't mess up with the numbers on the solution that you have written in there. You can do that, or you may not write the boundary. That should be all right too. So then we go ahead and say 7 divided by 7 is 1, or pretty much these two gets crossed out. So then we are left with x on the left side, and that is equal to negative 21 divided by 7 is negative 3. So then this is the value of x that makes this equation correct. So this makes sense because if you have 7 times negative 3 is negative 21. At this time, I would encourage you to pause this video and try this problem out on your own. And when you're done, unpause it and check your answer. Okay, so we go over the problem here. Again, this means negative 3 times y is equal to negative 15. So we need to figure out what is that value. Since these two are multiplied together, we remember that the opposite of multiplication is division. So then we go ahead and divide both sides by negative 3 because our target is to have y by itself here. So then we go ahead and say negative 3 divided by negative 3, they get crossed out. It becomes positive 1. So we are left with y is equal to negative 15 divided by negative 3 is a positive 5. And this makes sense because if we plug the 5 back into the equation, negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. Did you get the same answer as this? Good. Perfect. Now let's move on to the next example right here. So we are given x over 3 is equal to negative 5. This means x divided by 3 is equal to negative 5. So we need to figure out what is this number right here, such that if we divide it by 3, it's going to come out negative 5. Since we see that this is division right here, we remember that the opposite of division is multiplication. So that means we are going to multiply both sides by 3. So whatever that number at the bottom, we multiply it. And if we multiply 3 on the left side, we multiply 3 on the right side as well. So then we can go ahead and say that this 3 and 3 gonna get crossed out. We are left with x on the left side, and that is equal to negative 5 times 3 is negative 15. So then the value of x here is negative 15. And this makes sense because if you have negative 15 divided by 3 is a negative 5. At this time, I would encourage you to pause this video and try this problem out on your own. And when you're done, unpause it and check your answer. Okay, so we go over the problem here. Again, this means y divided by negative 2 is 3. So this is division right here. So we need to figure out what is that value of y such that if we divide it by negative 2, it's going to come out 3. So then since this is division right here, we remember that the opposite of division is multiplication. So just like how we did it on the first one right here, we are going to multiply this by negative 2. and multiply the right side as well by negative 2. So once you multiply negative 2 and negative 2, we can cross this out. So we are able to isolate y by itself. So we are left with y is equal to, that would be 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. So this is the value of y in this equation, so that if we plug this negative 6 back into the original equation, it will come out 3. So that is negative 6 divided by negative 2 is a positive 3, because you have a negative divided by a negative is a positive. Did you get the same answer as this? Good. Perfect. If you find this video helpful, hit like and subscribe for more math videos. See ya!